hope you're doing well. This week for meal prep, the store had on sale ground beef, potatoes, and frozen veggies. And I've also got some small pickling cucumbers that we need to use up. Let's get started.
The potatoes are going to take the longest, so we are going to start by bringing a pot of water to a boil. I filled the pot with hot water so it boils quicker, and opt for the oversized pot so it doesn't boil over. Then I'm going to wash, peel, and chunk up the potatoes. The skins were a little tough, so I opted to peel them, but if they're super fresh, they can get mashed right in. They don't need to be super tiny pieces, but if I leave them whole, they will take a long time to cook. Then it's into the pot of boiling water for 20 to 25 minutes. Be sure to watch out for splashing water when you dump in the potatoes. I leave the wood spoon on top of the pot so if the potatoes do foam up, it stops them from boiling over. Now I'm going to start on the tiny pickles by washing them, cutting the very ends off, and removing any suspiciously soft spots. These were just a little too tall for the jar I was planning to put them in, so I cut them down to length and snacked on the cut off pieces before quartering the rest. I like to quarter them because they pack into this style jar better, but this works for whole or halved cucumbers as well. If you want to try this, make sure you are using a canning safe jar. Not all glass will withstand the heat of boiling water. I get the amount of solution I need by filling half the packed jar with vinegar and the rest with water. I overfill it slightly in case some boils off, then dump this into a saucepan and add the salt, sugar, and spices. For this amount, I used a teaspoon of salt, a half teaspoon of sugar, and I eyeball the rest of the flavors. To this batch, I added minced garlic, coriander seeds, white pepper, dill, mustard powder, black pepper, chipotle pepper powder, ginger powder, and onion powder. Then stir and bring to a boil. It doesn't take long at all. I'm also going to start preheating my big pan for the ground beef. The pickle brine is boiling, so I'm going to pour that over top of the pickles and set it to the side to cool. I make sure it is away from where the raw meat is about to be, just to make sure there's not going to be any contamination. These will go into the refrigerator once cooled and store for a couple weeks. Now the pan is preheated, it's time to add the beef. This week 80/20 was on sale. I'll use anything from 93.7 down to 80/20. But any lower than that, I feel like I'm wasting too much by draining off the excess fat. And any higher than that, it gets really dry and I like some flavor in my food. I try to take note of the grams per serving now to help portion out my meals later. This is 19 grams for a 4-ounce serving, so I will probably use a 6-ounce portion to get closer to the 30 grams per meal I tend to aim for. I break the beef up into the pan, wash my hands, and add salt and pepper. I will add different sauces and flavors to my meal containers, so I don't worry about using specific seasonings now. My potato timer has now beeped, so I'm going to make sure they are fork tender and drain off most of the water and make sure my burner is off. I'm also keeping an eye on the beef right now, so I forgot to film the draining, but I just dumped the water into the sink without letting any of the potatoes escape. Into the drained potatoes is going to go a stick of butter. This will depend on the number of potatoes you cook. There are a lot in here, and I didn't buy any sort of milk at the store, so the butter is where the creamy texture is going to come from. I'm going to put this in and then put the lid on so that the butter is melted by it. Once it's melted, I'm going to mash up the potatoes. Yes, I am using a whisk. This one is rather sturdy, and it does the trick. I added some garlic powder and parsley flakes to season up the potatoes and mixed them in. This is also if you have milk or cream where you would want to add it. I had left some of the starchy water in the bottom of the potatoes, so between the starchy water and the butter, they got to a decently creamy texture. In the meantime, I started pre-cooking the frozen veggies in the microwave, one package at a time. Just make sure the packages are the microwavable ones before tossing them in. I just use the instructions on the back, and most take 6 to 7 minutes. The beef was almost done at this point, and the fat just wasn't cooking off, so I did drain some off. I just scoop it out into an empty container with a big spoon. This lets it just brown up a little bit more and look more appetizing. Once that's finished cooking, I scoop the beef and potatoes into containers. This 3 pounds of beef made 8 containers of roughly 6 ounces, and I added about 1 cup of potatoes to each. Into the frying pan that may have some beef drippings in it or may need a little bit of olive oil added to it, I started seasoning the veggies. Green beans got salt, pepper, butter because I need more calories in my life, then minced garlic, a splash of Worcestershire sauce, and a sprinkle of cayenne pepper before a stir to melt the butter and coat the veggies. One 12-ounce pack of beans splits nicely into 2 containers for me. I added a little bit of barbecue sauce to the meat of these containers before putting the lids on. Then went in the corn with a can of rinsed black beans. Again, I'm going in with butter, then chipotle powder, paprika, oregano, and chili powder for a Tex-Mex flavor. I think I forgot to add the salt and pepper to this one, but normally that would go in as well, and this went into 4 different containers. The remaining containers with only meat will go in the freezer once cooled to be used for tacos or soup at a later point, and the other 6 will probably be 4 lunches and 2 dinners at the beginning of the week. I had a lot of extra mashed potatoes, so I put them into individual containers and froze. They're not as good ones froze, but they do the trick when I'm in a pinch. Let me know your favorite foods to meal prep. Thanks for watching, and let's have a great week. Bye!